When rulers act irresponsibly, impose high taxes, and oppress the people, they create an environment that can destabilize any nation. This combination, familiar to many, was the cause of the division of an ancient kingdom composed of 12 tribes with a common ancestor. This kingdom, once prosperous and glorious, ended up fragmented by conflicts that forever changed its history and spiritual development. Many people who study the Bible get confused when they reach the part of Israel's history where, after accounts of heroes, judges, prophets, and famous kings like Saul, David, and Solomon, two kings appear ruling at the same time in separate kingdoms. Additionally, these kingdoms sometimes fight each other in a kind of civil war between Israelites and Jews who can seem like enemies. This can be confusing for those who do not know the history of divided Israel. It is important to know that the Bible describes a period when the nation of Israel split into two, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. After this division, the northern kingdom became known as Israel, and the southern kingdom as Judah, according to the Bible. In this video, we will explore the history of the two separate kingdoms to understand why this split occurred among the people of Israel. The separation began with the death of King Solomon in 930 before Christ, when his son Rehoboam took the throne. Initially, Israel was formed by 12 united tribes. However, there was growing discontent, especially among the northern tribes, intensified by the high taxes imposed by Solomon. When Rehoboam took the throne, he did not address the legitimate complaints of the citizens and chose to follow the advice of his young counselors, ignoring the needs of the people. This caused great dissatisfaction, and the northern tribes, led by Jeroboam, a former official of Solomon, revolted. This revolt ended up dividing the nation of Israel into two, separating the northern tribes from the southern tribes. Rehoboam even tried to form an army to regain control of the new northern kingdom, but God intervened, ordering the southern tribes not to fight against their northern brothers. God made it clear that he was in control of the kingdom's division and that it was happening according to his will. Therefore, the 10 northern tribes united under Jeroboam and crowned him as their king, establishing the northern kingdom, also known as the Kingdom of Israel. The first capital of this kingdom was the city of Tirzah, which was later replaced by Samaria. It was in this context that tensions arose, eventually turning into intense rivalry between Jews and Samaritans. During its existence, the northern kingdom was ruled by 9 different dynasties and had 19 kings in total, many of whom committed acts that displeased the Lord. Some of these kings came to power using violent and corrupt methods. This kingdom was marked by numerous political conspiracies and religious practices that were contrary to divine orders. Jeroboam, the first king, quickly adopted idolatrous practices, creating forbidden places of worship. Despite the political separation having its justifications, the division in religious practices was a mistake. The Israelites should have continued their worship practices in the temple in Jerusalem. The most intense period of idolatry in the northern kingdom occurred during the reign of King Ahab, who was heavily influenced by his wife Jezebel. During this time, God sent the prophets Elijah and Elisha to fight against idolatry in Israel. The political, social, and religious deterioration of this era is also highlighted in the prophecies of Amos, another prophet sent by God to warn the people of the northern kingdom. God used the personal experiences of the prophet Hosea with his unfaithful wife to represent the religious infidelity of the people of Israel. Among the most notable kings of the northern kingdom are Jeroboam I, Ahab, and also Omri, who was Ahab's father. Omri is known for his political and military achievements as well as his idolatrous practices. He was the one who established Samaria as the capital of the northern kingdom. However, the Bible emphasizes that he committed many sins in the eyes of the Lord, sinning more than all his predecessors. It is also worth mentioning King Jehu, chosen by God to destroy Ahab's lineage and restore worship to the Lord in Israel. Despite this, Jehu could not remove the golden calves that Jeroboam I had set up. Thus, Jehu is remembered both for his determination to eliminate the worshippers of Baal and for his failure to completely eradicate idolatry in Israel, continuing the error of Jeroboam. It is interesting to note that the northern kingdom had two kings named Jeroboam. The second Jeroboam took the throne more than 1 century after the first and had the longest and one of the most prosperous reigns, lasting 41 years. In contrast, the kingdom also had kings with very short reigns, such as Zimri, who ruled for only 7 days, and Shallum, who was in power for just 1 month, reflecting the political instability of the time. Now, let's look at the southern kingdom, also called the Kingdom of Judah, with its capital in Jerusalem. Unlike the northern kingdom, where the kings came from various dynasties, in Judah, all the kings were descendants of David, except during a brief period of a little more than 6 years. During that time, Athaliah, daughter of Ahab of Israel, took the throne of Judah after the death of her son Ahaziah. Athaliah tried to eliminate all legitimate heirs to the throne to ensure that no one from the lineage of David could claim it. She even ordered the death of her own grandchildren. However, through divine intervention, one of the grandchildren managed to survive in hiding and later restored the Davidic dynasty. In general, the kings of Judah, the southern kingdom, stayed closer to God's teachings. Worship was still centered in Jerusalem, following the tradition of David and Solomon. However, even with this devotion, Judah faced problems with idolatry. God sent several prophets to warn the kingdom about impending punishments due to their sins. Prophets like Joel, Isaiah, Micah, Zephaniah, Jeremiah, and Habakkuk tried to alert the people and urged them to repent before the kingdom fell. Unfortunately, these warnings were often ignored. During the exile, God called prophets like Daniel and Ezekiel, who spoke about the future restoration of Judah. After the return from exile, prophets like Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi helped in the process of rebuilding life in Jerusalem, supporting those who returned from captivity to restore the city and the community. Among the notable kings of the southern kingdom, we can highlight King Asa, famous for his religious dedication and commitment to God. During his reign, Asa removed foreign altars and religious symbols, destroyed idols, and restored the altar of the Lord. He also promoted obedience to God's commandments, especially in his later years. Although he faced some challenges in his spiritual journey, Asa is mainly remembered for his initial fervent devotion and the reforms he implemented to combat idolatry. His son, King Jehoshaphat, is also considered one of the most important kings of Judah. He followed his father's example in religious reforms and stood out for his loyalty to God and his encouragement of religious education among his people. Jehoshaphat sent Levites and priests throughout Judah to teach the people the book of the law. He also strengthened the kingdom's defenses and sought to follow God's teachings. However, his political alliances with the family of Ahab brought significant problems. Another notable king of the southern kingdom was Uzziah, also called Azariah. His long reign was filled with successes, including improvements in Judah's defenses, the construction of towers, and advances in agriculture. Uzziah was devoted to God in the early years of his rule, during which Judah experienced unparalleled prosperity since the times of Solomon. However, the end of his life was marked by tragedy. Uzziah made the mistake of burning incense in the temple, a task reserved only for priests, and for this transgression he was afflicted with leprosy. King Hezekiah stands out in biblical history for his religious reforms and his faithfulness to God. He removed pagan worship sites and destroyed idols in Judah. During his reign, he trusted God to protect Jerusalem from the attack of the Assyrian king Sennacherib, which resulted in what was considered a miraculous deliverance. Additionally, Hezekiah's life was extended by 15 years through a divine miracle. Josiah, another notable king of Judah, is remembered for his profound religious reforms. His commitment to restoring faithful worship to the Lord gained momentum when the Book of the Law was found in the temple. Inspired by this discovery, Josiah implemented several changes. He removed idolatrous worship sites, revived the celebration of Passover, which had been neglected since the time of the Judges, and restored the Temple of Jerusalem. These initiatives solidify his reputation as one of Judah's most devout kings. Manasseh, a king of Judah, is remembered negatively in biblical history. During his long reign of about 55 years, he exemplified poor leadership and idolatry. Manasseh adopted extreme pagan practices in Judah, including the human sacrifice of his own children and the installation of altars for foreign gods in the Temple of Jerusalem. Although he repented at the end of his life, his actions during his reign significantly contributed to the eventual destruction of Jerusalem and the exile of the Jewish people to Babylon. Regarding the fate of the Kingdom of Israel, which had become an independent state alongside Judah, it lasted only about 2 centuries before being conquered by the Assyrian Empire. The last king of Israel, Hoshea, ended his days in an Assyrian prison. In 721 before Christ, the city of Samaria was invaded by the Assyrians, and the population of Israel was taken into exile. Similarly to what happened with the northern kingdom, the autonomy of the southern kingdom, also called Judah, lasted little after the fall of its neighbor. About 150 years later, Judah was conquered by the Babylonian Empire, led by King Nebuchadnezzar II. During this period, the last 3 kings of Judah became vassals of Babylon, submitting to its control. King Jehoiakim initially submitted to Babylonian rule, but later rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar, which led to a Babylonian invasion in 597 before Christ. After Jehoiakim's death during the siege, his son Jehoiakim, also known as Jeconiah, briefly took the throne. However, he was quickly taken into exile by Nebuchadnezzar, who then appointed Mattaniah, Jehoiakim's uncle, as the new king of Judah, renaming him Zedekiah. Zedekiah also betrayed Nebuchadnezzar and led another rebellion against Babylon. This betrayal resulted in a devastating invasion of Jerusalem in 586 before Christ, during which the temple was destroyed and many inhabitants were exiled. Zedekiah met a tragic end. He was forced to watch the execution of his sons before being blinded and imprisoned, spending his last days in Babylon. In summary, the story of the division of the Kingdom of Israel serves as a warning about the consequences of disobedience to God and poor leadership. This era was characterized by rebellions, idolatry, and social injustices, reflecting both political and spiritual corruption. God allowed this division to fulfill His purposes, showing that He remains in control, even amidst chaos. This period of exile was established by God, beginning and ending at specific times. It was a time of divine discipline until, according to God's promises, a faithful group was restored from captivity. Many returned to Judah, rebuilt the temple, and reorganized Jerusalem. This renewal not only revitalized the Jewish nation, but also set the stage for the coming of the Messiah, as foretold by the prophets. Leave a comment if you already knew the story of the divided Kingdom of Israel, and if you want to learn more teachings from the Bible, click on one of the videos I will leave here at the end of this video. A hug, and may God bless you.